Okay, this week I'm going to concentrate and see if I can't finally finish up putting this hood together. So before I can put two halves together, what I've done is I've cut the this batting that goes. You can see it on the bottom side here. I'll show you it a little bit better once it's turned upside down in the hood shell. As you can see, these pieces that I put in here now act as a tray to hold these pieces, and this is HVAC aluminum tape that I've just used to hold everything in place, so that when I turn this over and dump it into the skin over here, it doesn't fall out. Anyway, the centerpiece is going to be a little bit more difficult. I've got to drop this in, trace this all out, and then because this is a compound shape, I don't want it to be, wrinkly in the middle if I can help it. It may end up having a few wrinkles in it because of the nature of the material. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it in here, and then I'm going to trace out the area, and then I'm going to contact glue that piece into here. Hopefully it won't be a problem dropping everything together in the final. So just making sure that anything that's going to be hidden or that I won't be able to get to is treated. I had to go and seam seal this edge over here because that was just tack welded. It wasn't solid welded like the rest of this box. And so that's all seam sealed up. Anyway, just little things like that. And I'm going to turn this upside down and dump it into that skin just to get this traced out, pull it back out, and hopefully move along. Anyway, that's what I'm up to this part of the week anyway, this beginning of this week, I should say. A little bit of tedious process here. So what I've done is I've got this paper here to mask out the area that I'm going to use the contact cement on to put that last piece in on the hood skin itself. But in the same process, I've had to mark the perimeter of this actual opening and then step it back about 3/4 of an inch so that the pad will be underneath this rim when this piece drops down. But also I had to make sure that it's not too far out and hitting any of these cross members when I drop it down. Also have to find out little clearances for things like this and this area here to make sure that all works out. So right now, as you can see, I have that blue line in there. That's an actual paper pattern for cutting out the pad itself. And like I said, I'm using the perimeter of the that I've already taped out plus 3/4 of an inch in order to guide me as to how big that pad needs to be. So when this drops down on here, it hopefully goes down in one shot and there's nothing interfering with it going down. At any rate, you can see what the padding is looking like in these areas here from the bottom side, and this is how it'll appear when the hood's open. This is what I was talking about it. This pad sometimes kinks up a little bit like that when it goes over a curve. Obviously, this is a pretty rigid material here, and it plays nice when it's on a nice flat area there, but that back's a little bit curved, and so hopefully we won't have too much of that going on when we get this thing curved up into this area here. At any rate, that's where we're at. Okay, so this is what it's looking like with the two halves put together. You can see how this worked out pretty good, being glued down. I mean, it's not perfectly. There's a couple little rumples in it, but it's to be expected with this particular material. At any rate, one disadvantage I had doing it the way I did it was I had to pre-paint this frame, so that's finished painted. And the reason that I call it a disadvantage is because I had intended to spot weld the edges of the hood to the perimeter of the frame, but obviously with it being painted, I can't lay the heat to it the way I need to, which without boiling the paint off. So what I ended up having to do was taking a mechanical fastening route, which was basically to drill out and put countersink rivets, steel rivets in here, but also I filled the holes with a panel adhesive before I put the rivets in, and then I covered them up, and I'll grind that off so that it has a little bit of extra holding it together. But that should be plenty to hold these two halves together. At any rate, and the back edge here had to just be, I put some silicone to hold this back edge to the skin because there's really, I have no way to mechanically attach it to the edge, And I hesitate to put rivets in the top surface because, sometimes, even if you Bondo over rivets, it wouldn't be too bad on the sides. You're used to seeing the impressions of spot welds on the sides of hoods all the time. But on the top surface, the rivets might telegraph through the Bondo and through the paint over time because, it's a point of tension. So I just put some silicone on the backside here to glue that whole edge down, and it's being held by clamps right now just to hold it together. I'll leave them on there for a while. So I'm just going to go ahead and grind off this excess here, and then before I flip it over and paint the top side, I'm just going to leave it sit for a day or two to make sure that silicone on the back edge is good and held. So back onto the car. All right, so here's one completed frame for the headlight pod. And this will give me something that I can weld to that internal frame. I've got a locating pin that normally fits into the radiator core support. And of course, all of these pickup points where this is bolted up are normally in the radiator core support. These two here, is one down on the bottom and here, and one up here. And then this one, there's a little ball that pops into a little plastic fixture right there that basically keeps that all from vibrating. Anyway, now I've got to figure out how to translate this onto the frame. So I'll be struggling with that next. All right, so I've got this headlight now temporarily clamped in to this rear frame, which this stays with the car, and then this is the forward frame that the whole nose will be attached to, the sheet metal the nose will be attached to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some of the sheet metal back on the nose and see how this aligns with the hole in the nose for the headlight door, and see if we're on track or have to make any adjustments. So a little bit of back and forth going on here. All right, sitting directly in front of the car, I've got the part of the nose on here to double check the positioning of the headlights as far as their side to side and the up and down. There's a little slight disadvantage of having these lights on the inside of the nose, in that they don't really cast to the side of the road because they're obviously down in the tunnel. So for that reason, I've lifted them up slightly higher than the opening and slightly to the center so that I do get some side cast. Problem is the lights that come with this car are simply too large to put in those bug eye pods that normally come with a Daytona. It's just a massive. It would be a massive undertaking to put them in something like that. You'd have to enlarge these openings, oversize them, and that might look odd. And if there's any issue with lighting up the road lights could always be added, which I have on my car and my spoiler. And they basically, they make up the difference because they're mounted down in this section over here. They would have to be mounted inboard. I'm going to have my signal lights down here, so if these lights are not sufficient or they're problematic, we could always add a road light in there on the bottom grill. At any rate, for now, we're not going to think about that. We're just going to make sure that these don't interfere with the drop-down doors, and they're centered up in the opening, and just like that. So that's where we're going to work from. Okay, the other thing I had to determine is my guesstimation front to rear on these headlights, and I've got about 1.5 inches of room between the lens and this mock-up pattern of this door, so I can at least afford to move these headlights forward another inch, which that'll help us a little bit more and get some of the light out of the tunnel, so to speak. Anyway, that's it. All right, so that's those two frames set into place here, welded to the car. Of course, I'll have to weld everything up a little bit better once I get this whole frame back out of the car. Got to take the fenders back off to do that. I'm just basically welding as good as I can get in around this right now. It's pretty solid. I mean, you can shake the whole car when you grab these headlight frames. So I'm just going to pop the headlights in onto these frames so you can see what's going on with that. Okay, so that's what it looks like with the two headlights mounted on there. You know, they're on there pretty firm. They're not wobbling around and vibrating, which is something you don't want to have to happen. But anyway, that's pretty much what they look like. And so we'll be pulling them back off because I don't want to get any weld spatter on the headlights because they're plastic. I don't want to melt them. And I got a little welding to do. So we'll move on from here. Okay, so rather than fiddle around with a bunch of parts while I figure out how the lower grill's got to fit and everything with the, I got to work the light housings in under there for the signal lights. I decided to start welding everything together so that it's one solid piece. So the long process begins of tacks every 1 inch and then skip welding it around the entire perimeter. So kind of looks good, just tacked up like that. Super stout, which is always surprising when you make stuff out of sheet metal. Sheet metal's so flippy floppy till you address it and put a little compound shape into it, and then when you start welding pieces together, all of those flanges and compound shapes make for a pretty solid structure. Anyway, that's where we're at. All right, so I got it back up in the air again so I can get under the front of this thing and work like half a human being. So got a little more room under there, I should say. Anyway, I'm going to start out with the grill. Of course, I only did half of it as a mock-up now that I know what I'm doing, so to speak. Got to refine all this and make this look a little bit better than it does. This plastic piece here actually is meant to fit behind the molded piece on a Challenger, so you don't see any of this normally. So it doesn't actually reach the top of this grill here, so I've got to actually try to make this piece out of metal and kind of cap this whole thing over so that it's all one piece that can be body worked. Anyway, I got to do that for both sides. I'll be starting with that, and we'll see how far I get with that this week. Okay, so this is a pretty tricky little piece. So first off, whenever I got something like this, I like to break it down into smaller components because it's easier to handle. First thing I did was create this piece here, and then I worked on making this piece. It's a little difficult because it has a bunch of things going on. It arcs over in this direction, but it also reverses out and it swales out in a bell shape. Now I'll just tack these two pieces together, but the difficulty comes in the fact that the piece is so small and all of my tools, my power hammer, everything is pretty big. Shrinker stretchers and everything, so there's only so much you can do to actually manipulate the metal because you can't get in to bite these little areas here the way you would like to. I don't know that any miniature versions of all these tools exists, but at any rate, that's the direction I'm heading in. Hopefully I can duplicate it on the other side. As you can see, this extends this all the way up to the top where it meets this nicely. Also, this is a steel, so this will be able to be body work. This piece is the ABS plastic, and I don't know that Bondo will stick to that very well. I know it hasn't stuck at any time I've tried to make that happen. It just peels right off. So once this is welded to this piece here, this will all be able to be Bondoed and smoothed out and made to look just peachy. Anyway, that's what I'm up to. All right, so this is what this is looking like now. No premature celebrations here because I got to repeat it in the mirror image on the other side. So a little bit tedious, but it worked out okay. Again, the key to this is to basically have a little bit thinner metal so it's easier to manipulate around a complex shape that's so small. Anyway, moving on from here. All right, so that's about as far as I'm going to be able to take it this week. I'm out of gas, basically. And this takes a lot of concentration to make these two pieces up. Or also just be fooling around. Anyway, the main part is that I've got this fabricated over here, and this is joined with this center piece, just like the other side over there. So now this is all one continuous piece. At least the plastic is. The steel will be removable for, you know, paint and body work, but that's a ways down the road. At any rate, I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and I'm going to leave a clip on the end here of, it was about 8 years ago, I'm going to say right now, of when I was testing out the lights and the drop-down doors on my car. So to give you an idea what it looks like when the doors drop down, the headlights come on. Of course, the video clip was a test of running through all the lights, you know, high beams, low beams, and everything else that I had on the front of the car. So I'll leave that on the end here, and I appreciate everybody for watching, and I will see you on the next one.
Ready? 1 second. Okay, counting.